So I wrote down in my thought journal all these notes and tips about what I wanted to say regarding fashion, and I think that it's easier if I speak from the heart. It's very cliche, but it's the truth. It's just a lot easier. My main issue with fashion advice, lots of the fashion advice that I see, is that I think that it's too on the nose and it provides too many concrete examples that might be great if you are looking to copy, but I think it doesn't leave enough room for interpretation. It doesn't leave enough room for critical thinking. It doesn't allow for the individual to process or interpret the fashion it means to them. Everything regarding fashion tips and advice needs to be, or for some reason is, spelt out all the time. My main concern with giving fashion advice is that there are too many distinguished individuals or intelligent people who are going to look at this advice and not take anything from it. And I think for me, it stems from a long standing idea that the most thoughtful or thought provoking ideas are going to be the ones that leave things open to interpretation, or ones that leave you enough room or enough space to interpret things for yourself. Fashion advice and fashion tips doesn't leave enough room for critical thinking. This ties to what I like to call conceptual fashion thinking, where I want that sort of like space to think about it for myself and interpret it, because at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of the fashion advice and tips that are given just tie back into things that might need to be purchased additionally, or things that we might not own, perpetuating the idea that what we have isn't enough and leaves people in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. It's so easy to just compile a list of things that you may want off of your wish list and style them with, a very popular item, and then call that three fashion combinations that work well for the summer. When I think that a better approach to go about it is, how are we going to tailor what we currently own, or tailor our current style to what we are currently wearing right now. The fashion advice, as interesting and as helpful as it may be, it's so on the nose and it's so lackluster under the guise of being informative. We are given these sort of like visuals that just reinforce the status quo. And there's nothing wrong with wearing what other people are wearing. And I think that's sort of like the issue. The issue is that there is a constant push to seem as if it's a bad thing when it honestly isn't. Because at the end of the day, I think the best fashion advice would just be to simply not care. It's not what the message that we're receiving, is how we interpret it. I think honestly it stems down to an attitude issue. It stems down to like not an attitude issue by itself, but also how we take this advice and how we interpret it into suiting, confirming what we already know, or allowing this to make us feel a certain kind of way about ourselves and what we wear and who we are. Before I was to consume any more fashion advice, I would first ask myself if I was truly happy. We intake fashion advice, which only wants us to go out and purchase additional products, or giving us ideas about wearing items in ways that we might not have thought of or we might not own, which just reiterates the idea that what we have isn't enough, or it makes us feel as if we aren't enough because we don't have these items, which just kind of makes us feel bad about ourselves. And both of those just lead back to the whole point that the fashion advice is never about fashion. It's about reaffirming the status quo. It's about it's about nothing really. It's just about yapping to yap, I guess. The consumerism is tied to consumer marketing, or like consumer psychology. This focuses on what's the next thing going to be, what's the next trend is going to be. And I think that this is forced upon us because we are expected, or we are driven by grabbing the next best thing. It's signaling that we are one step closer to becoming that ideal version of ourselves. And the ideal version of yourself doesn't exist, because honestly, if you think about it, the person who you were before to now has been an evolutionary concept. You are every day becoming the person who you want to be. So when I hear all of this advice about decluttering your wardrobe and just getting rid of things that don't feel like you, I'm just like, who are you if not the summation of all of your experiences? Who are you if not everything that you have become based off of your experiences, and based off of all of the decisions that you have made in the past that have led you to where you are right now. All of these experiences are concrete, and for some reason, these experiences are personified through what we wear, but that's devalued because for some reason it never seems to be enough. It's never enough to be satisfied with what we have, and that's even something that I fall into as someone who used to overconsume and like spend so much on clothing. But when I look back at it, all of these items are reflections of who I was, who I am. And honestly, as I see it, fashion itself is cyclical. Trends come back. We go back to things that we once loved. We go back to things that we have once thought about. And as thinking about things is the first step, we shouldn't be constantly thinking about who we want to become. We should focus on who we are right now, and honestly focusing on what has led us to this point, because it is truly through the experiences that we are able to have a better understanding of what is to come. History repeats itself. That is the truth. I don't want to ever give out advice and make it seem as if I have all of the answers, because I only have all of the answers for myself. I only have the answers for the experiences that I have lived. So I couldn't possibly give someone advice about what I think would be in their best interest to do, because that is only through my experiences. I don't think it makes any sense is that I'm using my past experiences to tell you how to live your future. That doesn't make any sense. I might have a bit more experience in, I guess, styling and the the whole idea of knowing exactly where to get specific items and how to consume, but it's a lot more conceptual than that. And I think that's where the true power in it lies. It's about the thinking of the fashion, it's about the conceptualizing the fashion, it's about the critical thinking, and it's about revealing what this tells us about ourselves and about human nature, and the continued point of where we are going to become can only be through what we have lived before in the past. You have to give yourself the space to think. You have to give yourself the opportunity to truly think about it. I have lived so many lives, and all of these items that I've purchased can represent different parts of me and different parts of me, of things that I have enjoyed, things that I have liked, and how can I adapt that to what I am currently experiencing right now, and how can I make that who I am, instead of wanting to, for example, externalize that and seek advice re that'll only make me want to feel as if I'm good enough. Because I think there is an element of pity. There's an element of pity that I have lived, and there's an element of pity that I feel that this advice seeks to withdraw from people. All of the advice that we see, I think it tries to grasp at that insecure aspect of people, and it wants to then provide concrete examples in order to, for example, create a divide. So it's creating a divide between these two aspects, whether or not you currently own the items that are being visually represented, and whether or not you are able to bring that piece of pity of yourself to the surface in order to, see a bit of yourself in that video. It focuses, I feel, a lot on the negative aspects and all the aspects that we might not like about ourselves, the feelings of self inadequacy, instead of highlighting all the positives. And I think that's what drives marketing. It's trying to reinforce that idea that we are lacking something, which is what we want to purchase, which is why we want to buy this item. And I would never want to create a video. I would never want to create a video or give advice to someone that is trying to reinforce the idea that what you own isn't enough, because it's it is cyclical. Just as the trend is cyclical, those feelings of inadequacy and those feelings of pity and those feelings of wanting more come back, and it's so easy to just live in that state and have it continue and not stop. And if it doesn't stop today, then we're going to wake up and realize that tomorrow is a brand new day and we are consuming the exact same thing, and we're wondering why we feel the exact same when that shouldn't be the case. And I would never want that. While I do think that sometimes visual representation can help, I think that when you think about fashion conceptually, or when you're able to think about fashion from a more critical standpoint, you won't need that visual representation because you're going to interpret it in a way that works for you. So you need to know that what you have is enough. You need to be able to, for example, take that advice and depersonalize from it. You need to be able to see that advice and know that this advice, even this video, it wasn't made so that you can take it and jot down every single note and follow it word by word. I think you have to look at it and be able to take a step back and think about what this is showing me about the nature of my being, and what this is showing me about who I am as a person, how I can apply that into what I already own and what I would purchase if necessary. And a lot of the times I find it's not necessary. And as I find ways to mitigate that and as I find ways to make that work, I would love to see exactly how this can be applicable to large amounts of people without trying to make people feel bad, because you should never feel bad about not having specific things or not being able to get these specific things, whether or not it's from a financial perspective or it's just a lack of access or it's just because you might own these items but you don't know how to style them. I think even if you were to watch a styling video, don't watch the styling video and just think that you need to style this exact same way. Look at it, take it into interpretation, and leave most things open to interpretation, because that's just the way that I think it works out, and that's just the way that it should go. Because when you give yourself the room to interpret things, you're going to create that sort of like linkage where you're realizing that I know that what I have is enough, and I am going to then interpret more things in the future instead of trying to rely solely on the information that is provided to me at face value. And that is the message that I wanted to share today. You are enough as is, your style is enough as is. And if you keep watching advice about how to develop your style, how to change your style, you're just going to keep developing something that you've had the entire time. Whatever you may take from this video, however abstract or direct or indirect the message may be, I hope that you were able to understand that it's style, fashion, all of these things are just concrete examples. Style, as open a term it may be, is just a concrete example of how you represent yourself. But asking yourself a bigger question about who you are and what you think about yourself and what you are trying to reveal through your style is a better way to go about things than just trying to figure out exactly what these things work for you. You need to first focus on what it means to you in a critical sense before we start taking direct applications. And that is the message that I have today. Thank you. Goodbye.